welcome back. Do not forget, it's our holiday episode of Rise and Shine Daily. Of course, Christmas Boxing Day edition, actually. And we just brought you a report that talks about how the political, economic, and security situation in the state has actually blighted a lot of Nigerians from celebrating the Christmas. But aside from that, we'll be looking at our focus conversation this morning. Sometime last week, Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, actually said, more like he was breaking the ice on who he is going to be choosing as his preferred candidate. But he gave a little bit of suspense when he said he will be doing the unraveling by January. And of course, we had Uche Secondus, a former chairman of the People's, the national chairman now of the People's Democratic Party, saying that, look, Governor Nyesom Wike cannot, shove down anybody down the throat of River State people. So these are the conversations that we'll be having this morning. And joining us to have this particular conversation is Barrister Moafan, who is a policy analyst. Good morning and Merry Christmas.
Good morning to you too.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but before we actually go into our focus conversation now I'd like you to react to, the reports that we showed earlier. Lots of Nigerians complaining about how the economy, political, and also security situation in the country has affected them. I remember one of the respondents saying, look, you can't find smiles on my face today because he cannot afford even a cup of rice that goes for, I think, 300 naira as we speak for his family. So Nigerians, the bottom line is Nigerians are not happy about what is actually happening. So let's just have your reaction towards that.
Well, traditionally, the average Nigerian is engages in seasonal celebrations. We value so much seasons. You're either celebrating one public holiday or the other, depending on which side of the divide, religious divide, you fall now. Not everybody is celebrating. Of course, this is holidays, and then for the Christians, we're celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. And ordinarily, it's expected that a lot of animals should lose their lives. Those who would want to slaughter chickens, goats, and all that, and then eat much more than before. This is also when you have a lot of people descending on rice, and depending on what your staple food is. So you want to empty your store, you want to cook all manner of things, and just to express the happiness about the celebration, about the reason for the season. Unfortunately, what we have seen in recent times is that the purchasing power of the average Nigerian has dipped considerably. And so therefore, there is a rise in cost of foodstuff, there's a rise in cost of almost everything. And then there is the almost near unavailability of fuel, even to drive around, even to take yourself around. And so I think also that there is less opportunity for people to travel out of station, those people who want to reunite with family and loved ones back home or back in their states of origin, don't have the opportunity to do so because of the hardship, And like I say, a lot of times, it is because of our expectation. You expect to do a certain thing, and then condition does not warrant or allow you to do that, and that heightens tension. That causes the kind of disaffection, like you saw in the report, where someone says, "Look, even on my face, I'm not smiling." And in fact, he said the look on my face shows that I'm very angry. Yes, people have a right to be angry when their expectations are not met, when they are met with disappointments. The easy way out to it is probably we should begin to cut down on our expectations. We should begin to de-emphasize humongous spending at festivities.
Does it have to do with individual spending or humongous spending, like you put it, or it has to do basically with the fact that they feel that the government, from the federal to the state and even to the local government, have failed them in some sort of way?
Well, there's always a reaction to it. If we must find solutions to it, then individually we must take a second look inwards. How do you deal with the situation? How do you hold government accountable to ensure that there is rice, affordable rice in the market, and things can be cheaper? Cost of transport could be driven down. If these things are not immediately possible, then you must look inwards. That is the solution aspect I'm looking at now. Now, the other aspect, which is why we are even here in the first place, how did we get here, must be placed at the doorstep of the policy direction of government, principally. The other aspect is the attitude and the disposition of fellow Nigerians, fellow citizens, especially the business people. For instance, yes, I know that this country for a long time now has not refined petroleum products. We have depended on imports, and that is why we have landed ourselves in this confusion called subsidy. It has become almost impossible to remove subsidy. Even when this government has said, look, we are doing away with that, we are seeing that we are paying huge sums, I think probably close to $1 trillion now, in servicing the subsidy deficit and so on. Now, but we also know that beyond that, those who manage the downstream sector of our economy, especially the petroleum economy, are also not helping matters. I remember, I think a few weeks ago, the DSS had to wade in to say, look, we are issuing a 48-hour ultimatum to...
But Barrister,
nothing was done. Yeah,
nothing was done.
That's true. But you see, when the DSS speaks like that, I mean, it just shows that probably some people think that there is sabotage somewhere. There are some people who are deliberately ensuring that there is artificial scarcity, which is what we used to see in this country a couple of years ago. I think we haven't witnessed this kind of scarcity
we haven't
in a long time, especially since the Buhari administration came in. So the question now is that why now? Why are we going through all of this all over again? Are we really looking the direction of what the DSS is saying? Are we looking at sabotage? Are we looking at people who are creating artificial scarcity? And if that is the case, for what reason? Is this because of the politics that is fast coming upon us, the elections which are in less than, I think, 60 days or so away and all of that? Now, my thinking is that, especially in Akwa Ibom State, my thinking is that our people have a way of foisting hardship on each other. If you go look at what is happening in filling stations, last night I bought petrol for 270. I think the night before I bought for 300. You know, in the open market and at filling stations. I don't know how much it goes for in other parts of the country, but I remember that in Abuja, for instance, we've had this fuel scarcity for several months running now. You know, so once it comes to things like that, the problem is it because there is no fuel in, or there is short supply of fuel, or it is just that those who have opportunity of running that sector feel that this is the best opportunity to descend on the rest of us, heighten cost of fuel? Because you see, everything that is service related in our economy is dependent on fuel. Everything. Cost of foodstuff, preservation of foodstuff, refrigeration, business centers, transportation, everything is tied to availability of fuel. And I mean, correspondingly, that's why we see the difficulties we're finding, we're feeling now, especially in this season. And it is so, or more so, that the things you expect, usually, I mean, by now I expect that politicians would have doled out bags of rice. It's usually free. You know, they give it out, hundreds, thousands of bags of rice. You would see people carrying on their shoulders and on their heads. I didn't see that happen in the last few days, even though someone mischievously explained to me that, the government of the day is not very excited. There are developments in the political sphere which don't happen to sit well with them, so everybody is detaining rice just in case things don't turn out right.
Is that a real thing?
Well, you know, when people
Use
when people have
the way you put it, detaining rice.
Oh yeah, you know, because they should free this rice. You know,
so that, I mean, the common man can at least have
so they could go around.
Yeah.
And you see, unfortunately, politicians have a way of dealing with us. You know, they make things difficult for you from January till about November. Then in December, they open the storehouses and these things begin to flow, especially when you are approaching the elections like this. And people are not seeing that. And then the question is, why are we not finding these rides flowing? If things are difficult with individuals, are things also difficult with governments? Definitely not with Akwa Ibom State governments. We should easily be one of the richest in the country. We know how much money we've gotten. We know in recent times, revelations as to how much refunds we've received in arrears.
But the governor has come out to say that he's using it for some major projects in the state. From 1999?
From 1999. Major projects outside the state?
In the state.
Oh, in the state.
Of
Okay,
course,
okay,
yes.
okay. Well, since we're not seeing the projects, but you see, I mean,
and I think he also said that it wasn't like all of it, right? That even the federal government, in trying to, like, you know, has exonerated him because his figures that he gave and that of the federal government is in sync.
Yeah, I like the fact that we always.
So it wasn't totally the way Governor Nyesom Wike mentioned it in the first place. So that's why you have Governor Nyesom Wike commissioning one after the other every other day.
Well, I like the fact that our government back here in the state gets to react to these revelations. There are always revelations for us, and they're mind-blowing, they're eye-popping. If Governor Nyesom Wike didn't speak about it, nobody would know about it. You know, the closest we got to having an insight into the fact that some mysterious funds were coming into the state coffers was when the governor mentioned some time ago that, oh, he had miracle money. You know, and that took my mind straight to what Apostle Johnson Suleiman said some time ago when he said angels were going to begin to deposit monies in private bank accounts, you know, begin to dispense cash to Nigerians and so on and so forth. So I thought that Akwa Ibom State government was a beneficiary of that.
So you think that in terms of the amount of money that Akwa Ibom State probably has, you know, received in the last couple of years, that things should be economically
including the loans
different.
we have also obtained, yes.
Okay, including the loans we have also obtained.
Yeah.
You think that, you know, the economic realities for an average Akwa Ibomite should be different as against the things we've heard
I think
this morning?
that the volume of the cries and wailings should be lower. Okay. You shouldn't be able to compare the complaints in Akwa Ibom State with what you hear in other states of the country. I believe that we should do better, a lot better. We actually don't have any reason to complain in this state. We should be producing food. We are getting palliatives. We are getting handouts, you know, from the federal government. And this federal government has been very magnanimous. And Akwa Ibom State has been probably have benefited so much, greatest beneficiary of the largesse of this government. But you see, we are not. There's no corresponding manifestation of that. When you say that these monies are being used for projects, if Nyesom Wike is doing 10 flyovers and commissioning projects every other day, as at 2-3 days ago, he said he's been commissioning projects for 5 weeks, non-stop.
Yeah.
Non-stop. I don't know when last we commissioned projects in Akwa Ibom State. I think probably sometime in September. The partly done, I think, Third Ring Road was commissioned with the water fountain and underground air conditioning system at the roundabout. But beyond that, you don't find anything that would catch the attention of people to say, yes, this is what our money is being used for. Except maybe we're saving for rainy day.
I think a rainy day in terms of which administration, because the administration is going to wind up in a couple of weeks. We have 22 weeks or thereabout for this administration to, you know, wind up. Let's even take it beyond Akwa Ibom. Now, Nigeria as a whole, would you say that, you know, the government of the Federal Republic has failed the Nigerians in, you know, in the policies, in the economic infrastructure it has put on ground that has, I mean, literally, these kinds of feelings will cut across the whole country at this time?
Well, I won't, if I were to score on a general note, the performance of federal government of Nigeria, I wouldn't score it an excellent grade in terms of performance. But I won't also score it very poor grades. So I would say the government has done as is maybe about 60%, taking all factors into consideration. If you have to lump security, lump policy direction in terms of our economy, lump social infrastructure, in terms of social interventions, in seeing how best to drive down poverty. Yes, putting all of that together, yes, I scored the federal government maybe about 60%.
Whether it was properly implemented or not properly implemented?
The implementation must start from policy formulation. Was the policy properly formulated? If it was properly formulated, why was it not implemented? If it wasn't implemented, that is where you have the human elements come into the picture. Sometimes you have very lofty government programs, but those who have the opportunity and the responsibility of implementing turn it upside down. For instance, you had what you call the school feeding programs across all, rolled out in all the states of the federation. I think the federal government was paying about maybe 70% of that, and state governments were meant to complement with about 30% counterpart funding. Now, many states of the federation, including Akwa Ibom State, many people didn't even know that was majorly funded by the federal government. But you see, in the implementation of that, even those who supplied food items in the state were not even being paid. And a couple of times they've actually gone out there to protest that for the gari and vegetables and bread and so on they had supplied for feeding of these kids, they were not being paid. And we actually had opportunity of even looking at the quality of what was fed to these kids. And you see that it was nothing to write home about. So formulation of policies, yes, very good. Implementation is always a different ball game. So we haven't had the opportunity, and that is because we have people at that implementation wrong who are not sincere. They're not patriotic. It's about themselves. You have people who are government functionaries, and in a couple of days or months or weeks of taking over government positions, they have properties all over the place. So it means that if there is anything to be implemented, they are implementing strategies to take their individual selves out of poverty, and not the generality of people.